I think the most common misconception is about I can build this fun gameplay first and then I add on the monetization later. They treated their gameplay and their monetization as separate part, but actually no.
If you set up goals that are clear, measurable, you're going to be able to understand what you need to do and how to keep focus and how to take this big project into smaller tasks, because it can be overwhelming to think about everything at once.
If you cannot crack US market with your prediction, you will not be able to succeed in Europe or other geos. We should make it clear that it takes lots more effort and timing to keep it clear.
So here we are in Vietnam, top tier growth market, and you of course want to think about how to grow your app. What better way than to talk with, I don't know, maybe not just growth experts, but a little bit in a way, I would say pioneers, because we have Božo, we have Ömer, we have, of course, Lemon, and we're here to talk today about growth because that's what everyone wants to hear about, right? Mm-hmm. We're so excited by it. You had to start somewhere and something had to spark that in you. So I'll just start with you, Božo, and go around, bringing you into the industry. What brought you into the industry? What made you interested in the app economy and doing what you're doing, which is growing it in your own way?
Absolutely. Thank you, Peggy, for having us here. So I pretty much started off fresh out of college. Actually, during college, I was working for one game development company in Serbia called Nordeus in business development.
I know them, yes.
Exactly. Okay. And so that's how my career started. After a few years there, I decided to move into consulting. Now I've been in the consulting business since 2019, so more than 6 years now, helping studios around the world grow their ad revenue, improve their ad quality. But we also have other teams that are helping publishers on different levels of business, for example, improving their user acquisition and growing their apps. Yeah. And yeah, it's been quite a journey in the past 9 years, and I'm looking forward to many more, I hope.
Well, you are growing yourself, your business. I've been watching that. So you've seen it from both sides. Ömer, you're looking at it, you're bringing us the insights from the industry, but what's your experience? What brought you into the industry?
First of all, thanks a lot for having us here, Peggy. Well, the beginning was I studied English language teaching back then, actually, because I really love languages, cultures, and just supporting. As soon as I graduated, I was like, I need more action. And I went into tourism, where until pandemic, it was fun. Then moving forward, I love games, especially mobile games. I'm a Supercell Clash Royale addict, unfortunately. Then I was like, which industry should I go after tourism? You know the answer already more than 6 years now. Started with media event organization side of it, went into both hands-on UA, monetization, hands-on operation, as well as the ad network side of it, sales, business development. I would like to keep my, the initial energy, language, culture, supporting people, social side, bring me again to media side. So there we go. And you often call me as Amazon of mobile gaming. I will never forget that. Trying to bring together, creating ecosystem here all together.
Curating is as important as creating. And you, Lemon, now you're looking at it from multiple aspects because you have your own company, but you're also commenting on the trends in the industry. Tell me a little bit about your background, what made you what you are, which is just, I'll say it again, the master of mini games.
My background is coming back for a little bit I've been in the industry for more than a decade, and previously I was working on a publishing company, like publishing the Chinese game to the global market, Southeast Asia and Western market. And I've been working in the ByteDance publishing department for more than 4 years. After the COVID, I decided to create my own studio to build some game because I think the publishing, the UA course, we are facing a challenge there, but you cannot always publish without a game. So I decided to build a good game myself. And the reason why I decided to choose this industry because I don't get punished by playing game during my work. Because
it's your job now.
At high school, I like playing game. The teacher always say you should play less because you need to study. study hard. So after graduate, I went into the game business. I told my teacher, now I can play game during my work. I don't get punished for it. I get rewarded by.
It's research.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this is what brought you all into the industry. And of course, people want to understand how to get into this industry. It's so exciting. But it's not just the games. It would be great if it was just game mechanics, but it's also about the business. And that's where some of the skills gap is. So let's look at some of the basic questions. Let's start with something as simple as, what do I need to watch for? You know, we're talking about metric, market shifts, something that you need to know to understand, do you have even a viable business, what you have? A new entrant today coming in, what do they need to know about the trends or the metrics? Because they have shifted, both have shifted.
Well, I think we should really understand how the ecosystem was shaped. So like we are now currently in a pretty much crowded competitive space. That's why like I would say number one for me would be definitely learning, staying on the top of it. So yeah, in terms of trends, I think we should definitely prioritize AI.
I can make it, we can open that up, but it is true because so many companies are here because they're AI pioneers, and this is a region for it. But, shifts, metrics, I mean, you can weigh in on that as well, Božo. You look at the industry because you're advising your clients, maybe something that they should be watching now more than before. Some shift that you've noticed.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've discussed at this event as well is how different monetization has become over the years. Everything from apps that are premium only over to in-app purchases, of course, that have become the main model for monetization. And then there were apps that were monetizing solely through ads. And now we see more and more apps actually kind of converging to a situation where they're using both monetization from in-app purchases and ads, and now combining it to a one hybrid model to truly try to monetize as many of their users as possible. And I think that mentality of trying to utilize your users and to really monetize as many of them as possible is a good ad to have.
Absolutely, because some will watch the ads, some will pay. Why would you miss out on any of the players? It just makes sense to spread your strategy the same way as your audience. Just be very broad and experiment. I mean, I'm not looking at it that way. I'm more about documenting and commenting on the industry. But one thing that I've learned, of course, is the shift finally. I'm kind of thankful because before it was a little bit like giving a lot of people a lot of money and sending them to Las Vegas, is we are no longer only focused on UA at retention. We're looking at the life cycle. I'm really excited about what happens when we bring CRM back into the picture. If we're talking so much about segmentation now, wait until 2026 and beyond. It's going to be a real business, which it is, but it took a little bit of a detour there. Maybe something also for developers to understand, what kind of business this has become. It's the gaming business, but it's also a business. You, for example, Lemon, you've looked at this, maybe some misconception that developers have about this industry, about getting into it, understanding that it is a business where there is risk and there's reward.
I think the most common misconception is about I can build this fun gameplay first and then I add on the monetization later. They treat their gameplay and their monetization as separate part, but actually no. But here you see the perfect example of a Happy. They have very strong portfolio. They build on their game on top of the very strong meta system because they already have the monetization system in place. But for most of their Western studio, they still focus on the gameplay part. They think, let's build a fun game and then let's add on their monetization later. But they throw a bunch of monetization feature there. It doesn't work out well. So I would say the monetization part for your core game design for the beginning and not as a separate add-on feature like that. Yeah,
think about that first. And so many developers thought about it because they loved the game. They loved making a game and they thought they were making a game that they love, forgot to make it for the players. They need to love it.
Yeah.
We talked about the risks and the rewards. I hinted a little bit that it was at one point, a little bit like gambling, but it isn't. But still there's the fun question, and you're the fun guy, Ömer, you're perfect for this, If you had $100, your first $100 you're launching, your very first step with your marketing budget, where would you allocate that money so that you could scale efficiently?
Well, clearly saying that you could very easily scale globally and get millions of downloads would be wrong.
Yeah.
So you would do the opposite, which is just the technical test side of it. And you should definitely go for more tier 4 markets. And most of us already know, but for new developers, Philippines, Brazil, Indonesia, these markets are really good for testing because WeChat is not applicable for everyone. And yeah, you would see, ANR, crash, backend issues, and initial data, and afterwards you could move forward.
So really test to see if you have a commercial app
yeah.
success on your hands, not go directly into which channel is it going to be, or am I going to go into influencer marketing, because you're not there yet, so don't worry about it. One is the numbers. We were very blinded by the numbers. It's very different, and we're looking at the quality of the user that we're acquiring, and that's where you want to make certain that you are getting users who are going to stay. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with churn, you're burning budget. What is the sense of that in the first place? So I will come to you, Božo, and ask you about how developers should be thinking at an early stage. They're just worried about getting users, but maybe should also be thinking about retaining or retargeting or keeping them in their ecosystem from the beginning. What's a great way to approach that?
I would say that you have to think about the retention as early as possible, maybe even in the ideation phase before you really develop anything, because we know how hard it is to acquire new users and how expensive it has become. The good thing is that I see that developers are not on that. Usually how they launch their games is with a technical launch, like Ömer mentioned, where they're trying to make sure there's no tech issues and critical bugs. After that, they would move into the retention launch, where they're trying to measure day 1 retention, day 3, day 7, and beyond. And why this is so important is because retention is pretty much a direct measure of how satisfied users are with your game or an app. Is your game fun for them? Is your app useful for them? And this is a key component for the LTV, and this is why it's important. And in order to measure that, you have to use proper tools. You need to integrate as fast as possible either Google Analytics, Google Firebase, or some other analytics tool, because without the data, you won't be able to act on it.
Exactly. And I remember an interview I did with Singa when they were just, rising so high. A few years ago, it's like, if you don't have retention, you do not have a game. And that was before we all turned to it. And I thought, what's he talking about? He's making so much money. But no, it is retention to look at and to retention to keep that. That's the important point, keeping your users. You have to keep your team. When you are a developer, a lean team. You're staying maybe to the numbers of 2 and 3 in charge of UA. That's tough, but there is help because you can co-collaborate. The solo developer and AI. Where do you see the biggest benefit that AI brings to a small team?
Well, the biggest opportunity is definitely being able to do literally everything, as like one-man show is real now, not like 5 or decade ago. And not just development, like we have, art side of it, UA, monetization side of it, lots of automations. That's why we saw so many examples, even from like US to China. I know dozens of samples here. But of course, it has never been easier to go for one-man show in the current AI era.
Looking at it from, we're talking about primarily a Western focus. We have Ömer from Turkey, we have Božo of Serbia. I'm based in Germany from the States. Now you are bringing, I think, a very valuable APAC view to this question. The small developer and the AI, because let's look at it here in Asia, making great strides. I wouldn't be surprised to see that one-man developer that we're talking about come from China, APAC, definitely. Maybe even just the whole game for that matter. Share a little bit of your insights here on the place of AI in this.
I think the AI is happening very fast, especially in China. Lots of AI tools are free to use because, for example, in a studio, a programmer, half of his code is generated by AI. So he just to make sure to check the code can run it. So I think the AI gives the small team or solo developer a great leverage to produce the game, because maybe 5 years ago, you still need a month to produce a game, but now I think the AI give their developers so much leverage, so that maybe they can build a prototype in a days, maybe in an hour, and run on the Google Play, and they don't need to worry about the art creative side, because so I think the AI give the small developer a very good leverage to compete with their giant, because at the end of the day, it's a creative win as long as you have pair with the right monetization setup, and I think there is the biggest leverage their small indies can get to win over their in their marketplace. I believe in the future, maybe the one man can get into their tag grossing chart into their global market. I think it will happen very soon because the AI have so much leverage. Yeah.
I mean, I was blown away when we were all sitting there at the keynote, and before that, seeing some of the videos, it was like, yeah, I can just speak my code. Boy, am I going to be empowered. You guys may have some competition when I come up with my game, because I can't code, but I can certainly talk. So did I say that? Yes, I did. But who knows, I might have a winner in there. It's interesting because what we're looking at is what the app developers are thinking about when they're going into business, right? And those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. You have to think first about the monetization model, but there's so much choice there, right? Because I can say I want hybrid for that matter. You know, I just want to go, a lot of them, a lot of subscription games. Blows my mind to see that. So if you're giving advice, and I'll start with you, monetization model of the mix, where should I start if I'm a small team, I'm an indie, where do I go?
So my vote always goes for hybrid monetization, and that means that you can start small. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You can implement a simple in-app purchase shop, maybe 1 or 2 early discount offers on the in-app purchases, and that's it. And then on the ad monetization side, you want to use 1, maybe 2 ad formats. You need to have a proper mediation setup with, let's say, 4 to 6 ad networks, and that's going to suffice for the launch. And then later on, you gather some data, and based on that, you can optimize, of course, both of these sides of coin. But for the beginning, I would say go with both, simple setup, and then move on.
First you invest and then you grow. How about you, Lemon? Looking at it again from, east to west, that's maybe the frugal path. Maybe there's a bit more of a risk-free, sort of a more less risk-averse way to approach it.
I think it depends on their team's expertise, because some team are good at building a hyper casual, or team are good at building some mid-core game or hybrid mid-core game. So for hyper casual, I would suggest let's go into their IA only. Just put some simple rewarding ad and watch out for the retention. If the retention is good, then you can put on that. I think because I see a lot of Verdu's portfolio, they grow for a very lean hyper casual game into a very heavier hybrid game. I think so. Less risky way to do that is for hyper casual developer. Let's go with IA only, and then see some. If a retention state, put on some a little bit of in-app purchase there, and to see the conversion, things like that. But for hybrid model, especially, you need to make sure during the test, first monetization test, you should have at least 1 conversion to prove your value. Otherwise, let's kill the game.
Yeah, we won't talk about statistically significant at that point, but you do need a lot, and sometimes it's good just to do the tests. It's not even, I've spoken with so many developers with my podcasts and my articles, and sometimes they're saying, look, it's not even about the numbers I'm gaining, it's about the insights and the data I'm gaining. This is telling me how to build my game and build my audience later. So even if I'm not acquiring, even not acquiring a user is valuable. It tells you something. Oh, you're not acquiring users. Do something. Go back, look at your marketing, look back at the actual mechanics, maybe the gameplay even. So you're learning so much from that. And Ömer, one thing that we can agree on here is that there's a lot of choice. Choice of monetization models, choices in maybe how you look at the data. You do have to gather it. There's not really a choice about LTV. That is the metric you have to go for. It's very hard to, what is the LTV going to be in the early stages, soft launch, pre-launch. I'm thinking that, all the people you're talking with and all of your approaches, what is it that users, the pre-launch LTV, Why is that important? How do you set that? You need to set pre-launch LTV in order to know if you're succeeding.
There's actually a lot going on in the market in terms of this misconception, because it's that easy like technical testing, as we mentioned. And I'm sure like Božo also would agree that LTV prediction takes lots of time. So like imagine you need to make sure about day 30 without seeing the retention and all the metrics like IAA, IAP. No, and so which would mean at least more than 30 days. And don't you want to also see beyond?
It's the cold start.
Exactly. And maybe there was a problem with day 7. Now it goes again. Concise answer would be they have to definitely keep us solid, especially in tier 1 market. So like if you cannot crack US market with your prediction, you will not be able to succeed in Europe or other geos. We should make it clear that it takes lots more effort and timing to keep it clear. There are actually really cool tools in the market for LTV prediction. I would definitely suggest to, just have a quick chat and test out some.
Every developer wants to have a commercial hit, and you want to know when you're on the right track. And it's very hard to predict LTV. You have the cold start problem. You're starting from 0. You don't have the statistically significant data. You just cannot just,
Yeah.
Is it going to be a hit, yes or no? I mean, I can toss a coin. We'd have the same thing. But you are looking at it and looking at the tools out there when you're doing the reporting and giving us the insights. Is there something that developers could be looking at to help them make that estimate?
Here we must definitely make sure that they will be fully data-oriented. It can be even IAA heavy or IAP, and you are on the studio side too, Lemon. They just check all the data, like bringing together our MMP, and you should be already done with technical testing, soft launching in low countries. As I pointed out, you will have to spend lots of time, even like pre-soft launching, we could also name like that, and afterwards with the data, you will see, okay, from the ad monetization aspect, this is the average out of this lots of big data. In-app purchase behaviors, not just from 1,000 people, it's not enough. So you need to grow even more, and bringing all of them together, you make sure that, okay, now this could be going profitable after day 25, day 30, or no, we need to target day 60. This goes like this, so not like random small tests, not US. It will be unsuccessful, unfortunately.
So give it runway and make this a data-informed decision is what I'm hearing from you very much. Okay, we have then an estimate and we say, yes, I have a good game, I have a good business on my hands, this has potential, and you're going to move forward. But of course, you have to think about the user experience, and we're hearing it so much more now than ever before about protecting the user experience. So, we've seen the data, Deloitte today, disruptive ads, that is going to upset the overall experience, it's going to create churn. What is it that a new developer setting all this up, they're thinking about their admon strategy and they're saying to themselves, I want to protect the user, but I also want to have a high quality ad inventory, and I also want to hit my high KPIs. How do you help them make some decisions or balance those interests? Because you want to make the money, you want to keep the user, and you want to have a sustainable monetization model.
So I would say that if you have a game that has some kind of an economy, so you're planning for some in-app purchases there and so on, a rewarded video would be a way to go, right? You can start with just one ad format, less intrusive, because your players or your users are opting in to watch those ads because they want a small reward in return for their time. And in that way, you're minimizing, let's say, the retention risk on that front. Now, if you in a hyper-casual space maybe, then probably you need to start with interstitials and banners. However, my advice would be to start slow in terms of the frequency of ads, how often you show them, and so on, just to make sure, again, that you're not frustrating your users away and churning them away. Now, apart from that in-app setup that you need to be careful with, you also need to be careful with the ad network and mediation setup. Specifically, I always advise my clients to start with your own templates. So don't let networks dictate their own default templates, but rather try to edit them, request changes, and make sure that the user experience within the ad itself is the least intrusive possible, in that way minimizing the risk for churn.
That's very smart. You could have like almost a handbook that you could write, just how do you negotiate that, right? Because as an indie, it's not easy, but it is possible. And it's great that you're encouraging them to sort of stand their ground and say, this is the way the ad needs to be, because they're, of course, going to answer for it. Very smart. And Rewarded, I have to say, also very smart, because that's what they're in to do in the first place. They want to play. Give them an ad that they can play with, that they can interact with. So we're going to move on to the next section, which is the next 12 months. And this is the final round, rapid fire advice for our audience. We've given them an idea on how they can set up their business, think of the monetization model, think about the data, when to collect it, and also understand where and when to rely on AI. So I will start with you, Lemon. Critical skill beyond coding. What is the skill that they should have that a new developer needs to master? Maybe it's not so hard anymore because of AI, so maybe that's different. But we have marketing, we have production, you have community managers. We don't talk about them very much, but they're critical for an indie company as well. So what should they be mastering? What's a critical skill?
I think the most critical skill for small or indie developers is to understand the marketing a little bit more, because most of them are focused on building a fun game, but they never pay attention to how the UA works in the full cycle. So you have to think the UA in the first place. How do you build the UA as part of your product funnel? Because you see the success story of the last word, and they literally build their game, really get into their player flow. I think that boosts their retention quite a bit. So watch more UA creative, think about it, and how to build a great game out of the UA creative. You have to make sure what you see is what you get. It's not the old time like fake it to make it. Nowadays, you have to fake it and make it.
And make it, yes. I will take that.
I think that's a key takeaway for their new developers, fake it to make it. Because UA cost is rising. I think it's quite expensive now, so you have to treat UA as part of your product design. I think the suggestion we give to their new developer, new team,
I would go with the marketing as well, because it's interesting. We're getting so much data about what's going on in the game, and we're not really using it to bring that back into the marketing. We talk about product is the new marketing, and there has to be, product-led marketing and bringing that back. And I've noticed that in my interviews. I have to say that that's a skill that's lacking. Understanding that what you're seeing, that behavior is telling you a lot. Bring it back into the company and find a way to funnel that to all the different departments that are going to benefit from it. It's lead user research right there, and it's for free. It's part of the experience. Speaking of experience, giving some advice, because this is not just about launching a game. It is about launching a business. And hopefully many of them are thinking about, a portfolio. Some very young companies are even thinking about brand, because they should. That is a differentiator going forward. So I'd like to ask you, Božo, about the difference between being a developer and being a business owner in this app economy, and maybe some advice on being that, transforming yourself into what will be a business owner.
As an app developer, you have to think about, coding, you have to think about building new features, you need to think about data pipelines and so on. But then if you start to think about all of this as a business owner, you still have to worry about all of those things. Plus, on top of that, you need to think about your team, about people management, about maybe raising funds, about the marketing, about monetization. So you can't just build features that are going to be only fun. Of course, that without it, it's not possible to have a successful app or a successful game. But then you also have to think about how am I going to monetize this. So you really need to make sure that you're able to first break even and then become profitable. And I think that that's a critical mindset you need to have, how to survive and then how to thrive in the industry.
It's interesting, because I've been talking with so many saying, what do they look for in a company they would ever invest? And it's interesting. It is about people who understand their team and founders, developers who have a mission, who have some sort of mission statement. So it is, if it's like about, you look at what we were seeing before, something like Duolingo, my mission is to make education universally acceptable. That is a mission. That's something to follow. It is about having that focus, as you said, Božo. And Ömer, I'm going to ask you for a call to action what they should do immediately after our discussion. We've had a podcast about how to get into business, how to make it, how to fake it and make it, right? So what is one thing that they need to do that they should take away and maybe start, literally next week?
I actually really loved how you depicted rather than just developer and putting it like business owners, business people. We should definitely touch upon that more. You must be business person, having the mindset, because like I think right now this era has like changed us a lot. The gaming isn't like same anymore. I call like just 3 periods. The beginning of mobile, so going back to 27, first iPhone was there. Second one, hyper casual boom 5 years ago. And today, like lots of AI, we talked about one-man show. And that's why, like, I think as you depicted, this business mindset comes number one. That's what I see, as you mentioned, from VCs in Turkey, US, China. They put the money to the teams, not to you are good at develop. No, that's accessible. That's why we should point out this business mindset changed the whole ecosystem, keeping data oriented and process result. That's mainly it. We should understand this.
Take one from you then.
Something
a final call to action.
Don't pick a fight you cannot win. So always focus on your specific genre and build your expertise on top of it. Because if you want to do too many things with your team, you will lose focus. Like I think in the Chinese company, most of them have their own meta system template. They build a game on top of it. So they are very focused on perfecting their meta system to make it compatible with different gameplay. So I would say focus on your team, focus on the genre expertise and build a meta system on top of it so you can stay competitive with your competitors and win the game.
You have the last word, Božo. The action item from your perspective.
Yeah, if you're starting your app business tomorrow and you need to think about one thing, I would say, and maybe it's a cliche, maybe it's something expected, but I would say a textbook example, you have to set your goals. And they should be smart or, whatever we want to call it, but they should be measurable and timely. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you need to determine what you want to do with your project, with your app in 1 month from now, 3 months, 6 months, a year. And then once you get there, you're going to be able to compare where you are with the goals that you set. Yeah. And then that's going to also help you prioritize things. Okay, do I need to start hiring more people? Do I need to start worrying about marketing, about raising money, and so on? So if you set up goals that are clear, measurable, you're going to be able to understand what you need to do and how to keep focus and how to take this big project into smaller tasks, because it can be overwhelming to think about everything at once. So that would be my piece of advice. Start with goals.
So Ömer, you're talking about the trends and the metrics that developers need to watch. I'd like to bring it over to you, Božo, because you're talking with the studios, you're consulting with them. There is such a shift. Different metrics that we're watching now, they're different than a year ago, and market shifts that weren't there 6 months ago. So what should a developer maybe be focused on now more than ever before?
Yeah, I think that one of the themes of this event here was focusing on ad quality and app quality as well. And I think this is important because the user acquisition costs have never been higher. We've seen in one of the presentations that this has risen by 30% just in the last couple of years. And we also know that the organics have also never been on a lower level, so which means you have to do user acquisition, you do get some organics, but that means that the users that you get, you need to keep as long as possible, which means focusing on ad quality, focusing on retention. I think this is one of the things that maybe wasn't that big of a deal before, maybe 3, 5, 7 years ago. Now, without the quality, without focus on that, you cannot survive.
True. We never spoke about whether or not we frustrated players before. It was just, we get them in and we turn them around in 14 days and live off the margins. So yes, I fully agree with you there. And of course, if they set a goal, then you know when you succeed, you know when you're missing the mark, and you know how to make those course corrections that will put you back on the track to success. And I think that is what we wanted to share here, is that core message, how to succeed in business. Because yes, you can do it, absolutely. We heard that. There are needs focus on your user and find a way to focus on that, and you have the blueprint for an app. So all it takes beyond that is goal setting, data-driven intelligence and business intelligence, and of course, using AI. I think some of those are the takeaways today, and I would just add to that one thing that is also very, very important is just to celebrate the small wins along the way. Give yourself some credit because it isn't easy and you have to keep the team spirit and your own spirit high. So I've heard that at several conferences and I think that's important. You know, small wins matter, and this has mattered, I hope, for our audience. It's been great chatting with all three of you.
Yay.
Yeah, we did it. My growth experts, I think you've done really well and given some valuable advice. So thank you, each one of you,
you,
Božo,
Peggy.
Ömer, and Lemon. Thank you.